Okay, welcome back, Talmidim, to our fourth shiur. I hope you're enjoying it as much as I am. So today we're going to actually start with a page of Gemara. And all future shiurim, we're going to use a Gemara page on the side, or actually the booklet on the side, because the booklet is there to help you learn Gemara. But the main thing, of course, is the page of Gemara. So, excuse me, now that we're used to some understanding of how Gemara works, we're going to use the page itself. Now, if you looked at the introduction to Gemara, those two classes, we explained exactly how a Gemara page looks like. But in case you didn't, so this in the middle here, this section right in the middle is the actual Gemara. It starts, sometimes it has a Mishnah here. This Eilu Mitziyus is starting a new parak, and over here, okay, this is the beginning of the parak, Eilu Mitziyus Shalai, and the Mishnah goes all the way down to Gimel Mem, which stands for Gemara. Now, the examples that we gave about the fruits and the money that was separated, that's all comes from the Mishnah. And the Gemara is down at the bottom. The Gemara is the rest of the page. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but this is a pirush of Rashi, just like you have Rashi in Chumash. That's the commentary of Rabbi Shlomo Yitzchaki, who lived in France, a tremendous Talmud Chacham. He's known as the father of all Mefarshim, commentaries. And on this side, we have Tosfos, which were, Yosef is to add, Musaf is an added tefillah. So Tosfos is added to the Pirush of Rashi, and it so happens that some of the people, Tosfos was not written by one person like Rashi was. Tosfos was written by many people. Some of them were actually Rashi's grandchildren, who sometimes wound up arguing with him. But it wasn't arguing personally, of course. They were arguing about, how to interpret a Gemara. So that's a nice argument. So let's go over it again. So what I'm going to show you now is there's actually only one word on this side of the page. If you remember, we started with the Gemara said, Itmar, we learned, Yiush Shalom Mida'as. Now, if you look at this little word on bottom, they have this sometimes in English pages also, that in case you want to know what's on the other side, or it helps you continue, the first word on the second side of this page is going to be the word Yiush, which we know because we have it in the Gemara. And if you look at the top of this page, the page numbers, let me wait for that to get up. Okay, so the page number here is Chaf Aleph, it's 21, and it's Chaf Aleph Amud Aleph. On the other side, it's side 1. Now on the other side, I'm just going to give you this little piece so we can learn the Gemara, and I'm going to broaden it so we can go through the words of the Gemara. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of toggle back and forth. We're going to go back and forth between the lesson where we had this, and we're going to go back and forth to the actual Gemara itself. Okay, I believe this is it. Right. So we're going to go back and forth between these two pages so you could see it in the Gemara itself. And that's the way we're going to do it from now on. We'll always read the text in the Gemara. Obviously, this is easier because it's color-coded with the components of logic. Is it a memra? Is it a kasha? Is it a teretz? And there's nekudos, this translation, this punctuation, and this translation. So obviously, we will certainly spend probably more time on this, but again, the point is, we want to be able to learn it when we get to the Gemara itself. So the word Itmar, remember, was on the other side of the page. Itmar was said. This is the first shiur Zayin of this group. Yiush Shalom Mida'as. If you remember, we know what that is now, right? If the person would have given up hope, if he would have known, but he didn't know. Abaya Amar Loi Have Yiush. Abaya says that it's not Yiush. Loi Have Yiush. Rava Amar Have Yiush. And Rava says that it is Yiush. Okay, so let's just do this piece. Now here, we actually ended the lesson. So we're going to go to lesson 7, to shiur 7. Shiur 8, Shiur Ches, and we're going to continue with the next Memra, okay? But let's go back and let's just read those few words. And what we're going to do is, I'm going to place like commas or periods or punctuation, not punctuation, but rather the components to separate the thoughts so it'll be easier to follow. You know, when you're learning in yeshiva with a Rebbe, you'll ask your Rebbe. Some Rebbeim think it's fine to do because it'll help you learn. Some don't think it's fine, so that's really up to your Rebbe. And well, I'll tell you what I used to do with my Talmidim is I used to have them do it in pencil, and I would tell them that as soon as they know it well enough, they can start erasing that little, that help, because I wanted it to be like training wheels. Right? Remember when you rode a bicycle, you start with training wheels and you take them off and you don't use them again. So I wanted these, this punctuation, a period, a comma, I wanted those to be like training wheels and not like a crutch that you wind up using always. So that's the way I did it, but you should listen to your Rebbe or whomever you're learning it with. Okay, so we're just going to do it, show notation. So again, Itmar we learned on the other page, Yiush Shalom Mida'as. What happens if you have Yiush, meaning he would have been the Yiush, but he didn't know about it. A little wider than that. So Abaya says, okay, let's just a moment. Okay, so Idma Yiush Shalom Mida'as. What happens if it's Yiush without knowledge? He didn't know. Abaya Amar Lo have a Yiush. Abaya says that it's not Yiush, right? It's not. It doesn't count like it's Yiush. V'Rava Amar have a Yiush, and Rava says it is Yiush. This is the end of the first Memra, the first statement. And if you look back in the Gemara, remember this begins a second Memra, which we said is not the way it usually goes, and this is going to start Shiur Ches, and we're going to continue with the Gemara. So the Gemara B'davar, and then we're going to review. Again, we did this in the last year. We're going to review it, and then we're going to review it with the Gemara, and then we're going to move on. So B'davar sheyesh by siman, and with something that has a siman, kuli amalai pligi. Everyone doesn't argue, means everybody agrees the loy have a yish, that it's not considered yish. Okay, so let's just go back quickly. So B'davar sheyesh by siman, in the second line where that marker is, in something that has a siman, kuli amalai pligi. Nobody argues the loy have a yish, that it's not yish. Okay, and so we see everybody agrees that it's not considered yish. Let's go back to the worksheet. Okay, kuli loy have a yish, it's not yish. Why? Va'af al gaf, and even though the shaminan that we hear, the miyayish l'saif, even though we hear that later on he was miyayish, loy have a yish, it's not yish. Dechi asa liyadei, again you have the translation here, when it came to his hand, bi isura, at a forbidden time, hu the asa liyadei, it came to his hand in a time that it was forbidden to him. Okay, so let's go back to the Gemara now. Again, when you're learning Gemara for the first time, or till you really have a few years of learning Gemara, there's no punctuation and there's no commas and parentheses and all of that. So it's obviously going to be a little bit more difficult. So that's why we're doing both. Now, va'af al gaf, and even though, back to that's the shaminan that we hear, the miyayish l'saif, even though we hear that eventually he was miyayish, loy have a yish, it is not considered yish, even though we'll do the diagram when we get back to the book. Dechi asa liyadei, when it came to his hand, the isura hu the asa liyadei, it came in his hand, the iser. He wasn't permitted to keep it. Now, if you remember, let's have a quick look. So this is actually a case where there was a siman. We saw this yesterday. So the Gemara discusses what would be the halacha here, because this is tefillin, right? It's not a bag of corn chips like we had in the first year. So if somebody has his name on it, he expects to get it back. So even if 5:30 somebody else found it and he doesn't find it he doesn't realize it's lost till the next morning, right? 7:45 on Tuesday. This all happened Monday night on his way home from school. he knows that he's going to get it back, or he hopes that he's going to get it back. So therefore, remember we said, so in this case, we're going to say on the bottom, look at what I highlighted, they're going to agree, Abaye and Rava agree that it's not considered Yiush, okay? So back to the Gemara. Okay, so va'af al gaf, and even though the shamina that we hear, the miyayish l'soif, that he's eventually miyayish, lo have a yish, it's not yish. The chi asal yadei, when it came to his hand, the isura hu the asal yadei. Now the Gemara continues and goes on to the next part, and we say, excuse me. Okay. The lechiyada, right? That this is where we're up to. Remember, we had it right here. The lechiyada. This is the part that, right? This is the part that we're starting from now. So the lechiyada, because here we're right here. Talmidim, right? We're right where that blue is. So the lechiyada, when he knew, when he found, when the owner will know, the nafal minei, that it falls from him, loy miyayish. This is the situation on the bus, where the fellow on the bus wasn't miyayish, meimar omar, he says, even if he doesn't realize it till the next day, simana isla begavai, I have a siman, I have a marking on it. It says my name on the tefillin. Yehivna simana, I will give the siman, vishaklina lay, and I'll take it back. So therefore, even when he loses it and he finds it the next morning, that guy can't keep it because he's never going to be miyayish, because it'll take a while for him to be miyayish, because he expects to find it back. Okay, let's go back. Let's do the Gemara inside. The lechi yada the nafa minei kama, when he knows that it fell from him, loy miyayish. That means even Tuesday morning when he finds out that he sees, I didn't bring my tefillin home. Oh, you must be on the bus. I remember taking it to the bus. But he's still not miyayish. Meimar Omar, he says to himself, Simana isla begavai, I have a siman there. Yahivna simana, I will give my siman. Vishakil nalei, and I will take it back. So what we're saying, and that's a thick line, because that's really like a new topic. Okay, now we're going to come with another example of a case where everybody agrees they will give up, and we even have a pasuk to support this. We did this yesterday, and I just want to remind my dear Talmidim that there's a lot of new words here. There's a lot of new words, so don't study them and review them. You might want to make like flashcards, cards with the answers on the back, because you might get a little overwhelmed with all the new words, and it just could become a blur to you. So I'm not reviewing it here, but we're actually reviewing what we did yesterday, but I just encourage you to make sure you take the time to review it. So, okay, so back here, so Bezuta Shel Yam is where we're starting from. Now we have the other case where everybody says it's Yiush. Bezuta Shel Yam, we said yesterday that there's a high tide, the water goes up and down. Ubashililasa Shel Nahar, and in the overflow of a river when it rains a lot, Afal Gaf, even though there is space in it, even though there is a siman there, Rachmana, the Torah, Sharye, makes it mutter, makes it permissible. The Kidaba'inan Lamei Malakaman, like the Gemara will learn later on. Okay, so now we have two parts here. We have this piece here on the right side, Bezuta Shel Yam, in yellow. We have Abaye and Rava agree that it's Yiush because it just flew away, went down the river or in the ocean, and he has no plan of ever getting it back. We also have a pasuk, which we'll get to later, because it's an Aveda is something that you lose, but somebody else could find. Okay, so Kipligi is where we're up to. So now let's go back to the Gemara inside. Bezuta Shel Yam, in the tides of the sea, when the sea goes up and down. Uvashililasa Shel Nahar, and when a river overflows its bank. Afal Gaf, there is space siman. Even though there is a siman, Rachmana Sharye, the Torah made it mutter, kama, Kidibe'inan Lameimar Lakaman. just like we will learn later on. Okay, so these are the two cases that they do not argue on, and the Gemara is telling us this because the Gemara doesn't want us to think that they argue in every single case. There are cases that they both agree the finder can keep in a case where he never has, where he has with the shilasa shalnar, but there's no hope of getting it. And the first case was where he's not permitted to keep it. And ki pligi here is where we're going to continue the Gemara in the worksheet. Okay, ki pligi, when do they argue? B'davar she'ein by siman. When do they argue with something that does not have a siman? Okay, Abaya says, so this is different than Shalilasa Shel Nahar, where the river takes it away and he has no hope of getting it. There is no siman. So then we have the machlokes that we spoke about earlier. Abaya says, Loi have a yish. It's not yish. That this is not considered yish. The ha lo yada the nafamina. He didn't know that it fell from him. So what's he supposed to do? He didn't know that it fell from him. So they have to wait until he's miyayish. Okay. So look what Rabbi added here. If you look up on top here. Okay. So Rabbi added here, according to Abaya. Okay. Look at that. According to Abaya, this does not matter. The owner walked away, leaving the object behind. He would have been miyayish if he knew it was lost. So at this point, when this fellow, 2 o'clock, when this person picks it up, the owner doesn't know about it. So Abaya says it doesn't matter if he would have been miyayish if he knew, because he wasn't miyayish, right? So according to Abaya, this is Rabbi Spivak's note here. According to Abaya, this is all that matters. What matters is that the owner was miyayish. Okay? Rava says, have a yish. It is yish. Okay? We know that when he knew that it fell, miyayish, he was miyayish. We said, the Meimar Amar, he said, Simana lesla begava. I don't have a simon here. Mehashta, who? The miyayish. He's miyayish. He would be miyayish right away. And Rabbi marks here, right? According to Rava, this is what Rabbi added to this chart. We had almost the same series of, the same timeline with the illustrations. According to Rava, it does not matter when this takes place. It matters just that the person picked it up, and if he would be miyayish, then we know that's the way it would be. Okay, let's just go back to the Gemara. Ki pligi, let's go back to the Gemara. So ki pligi, when do they argue? The davar she'ein by siman, if there's something that doesn't have a siman. Abaya says, Loi have a yish. It's not yish. Why? That he, la yada, he did not know the nafal minei. He didn't know that it fell from him, and therefore they cannot be yish. Rava Amar have a yish. Rava says it is yish. The lechi yada, the nafal minei, when he knew that when have a yish, it is yish. The lechi yada, because when he knows the nafal minei, the next morning, Meimar Amar, he says to himself, Meimar Amar, miyayish, I'm sorry, the nafal miyayish, excuse me, I should have put that there. It's really miyayish, the stop is here, miyayish, right? Meimar Amar, see how important it is to have commas? Meimar Amar, he says, Simana lesla begavei, I don't have a simon on it. Mehashta hu the miyayish. This is a big pause, stop here, and we explained exactly what the machlokes is, Abaya and Rava, and where it says this in parentheses, in tomorrow's shiur, we're going to start with Tashema, which is the next piece of Gemara, and then we're going to actually roll up our sleeves and get into this argument between Abaya and Rava. Okay, let's just go back to the sheet here. Okay, so we said according to Rava, let's say we finished the Gemara inside. Yes, mihashtahu did miyayish. Let's just have a quick look at the homework sheets, the review sheets. Okay, so we have vocabulary here. Read, translate, and explain the following Gemara. We basically did that. Briefly explain the meaning of Yiush Mida'as. So Yiush Mida'as means he would have been miyayish if he would have known. In which case, the Abaya and Rava agree that Yiush Mida'as is not considered Yiush. That's bedavar sheyesh by siman, if there is a siman there. Why does everybody agree in this case? Because because the person is not going to be miyayish, because like the case of the tefillin, because he says, I'm going to get it back. In which case do Abaye and Rava agree that Yiush Mida'as is considered to be Yiush? When is that? That's bezuta shel yam of shilasa shel nahar, if the water took it away from him. Why does everyone agree in this case? Because he has no hope of getting it, and we will also learn that there's a pasuk. In which case, Abaye and Rava argue bedavar she'ein by siman. Okay, so Abaye says, what's the opinion of Abaye? Abaye says it's not Yiush because he didn't know about it. He has to know about it. And Rava says it is Yiush because if he would have known about it, he would have taken, been miyayish. Now, here's the question. Remember, identify the steps. We're going to have this. This is something that we have throughout the workbook series. These steps, that's Rabbi Spivak's illustration, letting us know that the Gemara goes step by step. So what type of step is this? This is a memra. In what way is the step different than most steps of this type? Is that usually a memra starts the Gemara. Here it actually continues it. Okay? And the next time we get together, in Yirtzeh Hashem, we're going to begin Shiur test. And here we actually finally roll up our sleeves and we go into the disagreement between, a friendly disagreement between Abaye and Rava. I hope you all enjoyed this year. Have a wonderful, wonderful day, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Be well, my dear Chaver. Take good care.